A former Green Beret, a man who lost his wife in combat, who buried his first love under an American flag, who ran for Congress on the promise that no more American families would sacrifice for wars that served no American interest, sits down at a desk and writes a letter. Not a private letter, not a quiet resignation, a public letter addressed to the president he helped elect, to the movement he helped build, and to the country he served in combat. Sighs. The letter says 3 things. Iran posed no imminent threat. This war started because of pressure from Israel and its lobby in Washington, and the America First movement has betrayed the promise that gave it meaning. 24 hours later, Marjorie Taylor Greene calls him a hero. Don Bacon calls him a disgrace. Curious. And the coalition that was supposed to be unbreakable is arguing with itself on live television about whose war this actually is. Guess which side is winning that argument? And I am going to make it personal. You watched this president build a movement on the promise of no more forever wars. You watched him mock the neocons, ridicule the interventionists, and swear on every stage in America that he would never send your children to die in the Middle East for someone else's agenda. You saw him launch Operation Epic Fury on February 28th, airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites, boots moving toward a region he swore he would leave alone. And now you are watching the first senior member of his own coalition resign over it. Not a Democrat, not a never-Trumper, a decorated combat veteran who bled for the flag and ran for office because Trump told him the bleeding was over. Is that the resignation of a traitor? Or the conscience of a movement that just realized it has been lied to? Stay with me, because this story was not reported the way it deserved to be. And the part about Israel that Kent put in writing is the part most American media will not touch. Let that land for a moment. A sitting Republican congressman, a MAGA loyalist, a Gold Star husband, a combat-decorated Green Beret put in writing for public consumption that this war exists because of Israeli pressure and the influence of its lobby in Washington. Not in a private conversation, not leaked to a reporter, in an official resignation letter. According to reporting from multiple outlets, including Politico, the Associated Press, and the Washington Examiner, Kent released the letter on Tuesday, making him the first senior figure inside Trump's coalition to resign specifically over the Iran war. He did not hedge. He did not use diplomatic language. He stated plainly that Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States. He praised Trump's earlier instinct to avoid Middle East entanglements, and he drew a direct line from the Israel lobby's influence to the decision to launch strikes on February 28th. He broke on the neocons years ago. He broke on the defense establishment when he ran for Congress. He broke on the Republican Party's old guard when he aligned with Trump. And now he has broken on Trump himself because the man who promised to end forever wars just started one. And Kent is saying out loud what a significant portion of the MAGA base is thinking quietly. But here is the part that should make every American lean forward. The reaction inside the Republican Party did not produce unity. It produced a fracture that is now visible, documented, and accelerating. Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the most prominent voices in the MAGA movement, responded publicly. She called Kent a hero. She praised his courage. She signaled, without saying it explicitly, that she shares his discomfort with the war and with the forces that pushed for it. That is not a minor figure offering polite applause. That is one of Trump's most visible congressional allies validating the single most damaging critique of his presidency, that the war was not America first, it was Israel first. On the other side, Representative Don Bacon, a retired Air Force brigadier general and a more traditional Republican, issued sharp rebukes. Bacon framed Kent's resignation as irresponsible, as undermining the troops during wartime, as giving comfort to Iran. The language was harsh, personal, and designed to make Kent radioactive within the party. And that split, Greene versus Bacon, populist MAGA versus establishment Republican, anti-war base versus pro-intervention hawks, is the fault line that this war has exposed. It was always there. It was papered over by Trump's personality, by the shared enemies, by the culture war energy that kept the coalition glued together. But you cannot paper over a war. A war forces choices, and Kent just forced the choice into the open. Now, before you say Kent is an isolated figure, a single resignation that does not represent the broader movement, you are right, in a narrow numerical sense. One resignation does not collapse a coalition. One letter does not end a presidency. The Republican caucus is not about to fracture into two parties over a single congressman from Washington state. But here is what mainstream coverage buried. Kent is not alone in his position. He is alone in his courage to say it publicly. According to reporting from Axios and Punchbowl News, multiple Republican members of Congress have privately expressed discomfort with the war's scope, its timeline, and its stated objectives, particularly the gap between what was promised and what has been delivered. The war was supposed to last 4 to 5 weeks. It is now in its third week, with no visible endgame. The regime was supposed to fold. It consolidated under a more hardline leader. Allies were supposed to rally. Every major ally has refused to participate. Kent did not create the discontent. Kent gave it a voice. And when Kent wrote that this war started because of Israeli pressure, he articulated something that a significant portion of the America First base believes, but that no elected official had been willing to say on the record. He did not raise his voice. He did not attack Trump personally. He did not grandstand. He wrote a careful, specific, documented letter and walked away. And that calm, deliberate departure is more dangerous to this coalition than any angry tirade could ever be. Because it cannot be dismissed as emotional. It can only be engaged on substance. And the substance is devastating. Now, here is the political history lesson that changes everything. American war coalitions do not fracture from the outside. They fracture from the inside. Vietnam did not end because of the anti-war left alone. Vietnam ended because the establishment that started it, the Cold War liberals, the defense intellectuals, the foreign policy mandarins, began breaking with their own project. When Daniel Ellsberg leaked the Pentagon Papers, he was not an outsider. He was a Rand Corporation analyst who had helped design the war. When Republican senators began opposing Iraq in 2005 and 2006, they were not Democrats crossing the aisle. They were members of the president's own party acknowledging that the project had failed. And most Americans have never heard that pattern stated out loud because it contradicts the narrative that wars end when the opposition gets loud enough. Wars end when the coalition that started them loses internal coherence. Kent is the Ellsberg of this war, not in scale, not yet, but in function. He is the insider who has walked to the outside and brought the internal doubts with him. This is precisely why the green-bacon split matters more than the specific policy disagreement. It represents the emergence of two incompatible visions within the same coalition. One that believes America first means no foreign wars for foreign interests, and one that believes America first means American military dominance regardless of who benefits. This is precisely why Kent's mention of Israel is the most consequential sentence in the letter, because it names the tension that the MAGA movement has spent years avoiding. The base was built on anti-interventionism. The donor class and the policy establishment are built on the U.S.-Israel security relationship. Those two things coexisted as long as there was no war. The moment there was a war, and the moment the war's origin could be traced to that relationship, the coexistence ended. Here is something that surprises us every time we check the analytics. About 90% of people watching this video right now are not subscribed to this channel. And here is why that matters specifically for this story. The algorithm does not push content that addresses the Israel lobby's role in American foreign policy. It does not promote analysis that names the internal fractures of a sitting president's coalition during wartime. This kind of breakdown, the kind that connects Kent's letter to the green-bacon split to the broader collapse of the America First coalition, disappears unless you subscribe. You have already done the hard part. You watched this far. The easy part is one click. It costs nothing. It tells the system that honest analysis of uncomfortable subjects matters. Let's keep going. Let that sit. The most carefully chosen element of Greene's response is what she did not say. She did not defend the war. She did not defend the administration's strategy. She did not push back on Kent's claim about Israeli influence. She praised him as a hero, which by implication frames the war he resigned over as the thing a hero would walk away from. That is not an accident. That is a deliberate positioning by one of the most media-savvy figures in the Republican Party. Greene is not breaking with Trump openly. She is creating space, rhetorical space, political space, for the anti-war position within MAGA. And the people who are not at the table in Greene's framing are the hawks, the Bacons, the Grahams, the voices who have spent 3 weeks on television selling this war as necessary, as righteous, as the greatest military operation in history. Greene just told them, without saying their names, that the base is not with them. And that signal from someone with Greene's platform, Greene's following, Greene's proximity to Trump, is more structurally significant than Kent's resignation itself. Because Kent left, Greene is staying, and she is reshaping the internal narrative from inside. And then a reporter asked the question that cut through all of it. At a press briefing, a journalist asked the White House directly, "Does the president believe that Joe Kent's claim about Israeli lobby influence on the war's origin has any merit?" Let me decode that word by word. The spokesperson did not say Kent was wrong about Israel. The spokesperson said the war is based on national security imperatives. Those are two different things. One is a denial, the other is a redirect. And every reporter in that room heard the difference. The White House chose not to deny the Israel claim directly, because denying it invites follow-up questions about the specific mechanisms of Israeli influence on the decision to strike. Instead, they redirected to national security framing, hoping the redirect would close the conversation. It did not, because Kent's letter is now the text that every skeptical Republican, every anti-war commentator, and every journalist investigating the war's origins will reference. The White House is not managing a resignation. It is managing the emergence of a counter-narrative from inside its own coalition that has the potential to redefine how the American public understands why this war started. Not for American security, for Israeli security, and that reframing, once it takes hold, does not let go. Since the war began on February 28, 2026, the following has been documented. Joe Kent became the first senior figure in Trump's coalition to resign specifically over the Iran war, confirmed by Politico, AP, and the Washington Examiner. His public letter explicitly blamed Israeli pressure and the U.S.-Israel lobby for the war's origin. The full text has been published and is available in primary source form. Marjorie Taylor Greene publicly praised Kent as a hero, signaling alignment with the anti-war position, confirmed by her public statements, reported by multiple outlets. Representative Don Bacon sharply rebuked Kent, exposing the hawk populist fault line within the Republican caucus, confirmed by AP and The Hill. Operation Epic Fury is now in its third week with shifting timelines and no visible endgame, confirmed by Pentagon briefings and Department of Defense statements reported by Reuters and the BBC. Every major NATO ally has refused to participate in the conflict, confirmed by official statements from Germany, Canada, Japan, and South Korea reported by AP, BBC, and the Financial Times. These are completed developments with dates and sources, not promises or projections. The generation that remembers the Iraq War, that remembers watching the coalition hold together publicly while crumbling privately, that remembers the moment the first senior insider broke and the dam started to crack, is watching something eerily familiar happen right now. Except this time, the insider is not a bureaucrat leaking documents. It is a Gold Star combat veteran writing a public letter that names Israel, names the lobby, and walks away with his honor intact. That is harder to dismiss. That is harder to spin. And that is precisely why this resignation will not be the last. Here is the question that matters now. The MAGA coalition was built on two promises: no more forever wars and unconditional support for Israel. For 6 years, those two promises coexisted because they were never tested by a real war connected to Israeli interests. Kent's resignation has forced the test, and the coalition is now splitting along the exact fault line that everyone knew was there but nobody wanted to name. Option A, the coalition holds. Kent is an outlier. Greene's praise is rhetorical, not operational. The base is angry, but will rally behind Trump as the war progresses. The hawk wing, Bacon, Graham, the defense establishment, maintains control of the policy apparatus. The anti-war voices grumble but do not organize. The Israel question gets buried under patriotic messaging and rally around the flag instincts. Three things support this view. Trump's personal hold on the base remains strong despite policy disagreements. Wartime rally effects historically suppress internal dissent, and the institutional Republican Party has mechanisms to marginalize rebels. Option B, the coalition fractures. Kent is the first, not the last. Green's positioning reflects a genuine strategic calculation that the anti-war base is larger and more motivated than the hawk wing. More resignations follow, not necessarily from Congress, but from media figures, campaign operatives, and grassroots leaders who built the America First brand on anti-interventionism. The Israel question, once spoken aloud by a credible insider, becomes the defining internal debate of the movement. And Trump, who built his power on the unity of a coalition that no longer agrees on the most fundamental question of war and peace, discovers that the thing holding the movement together was always the absence of a test. The test arrived, and the movement is failing it. Vote in the poll below. I genuinely want to know which way you see this breaking, because the answer does not just define this presidency. It defines whether the America First movement survives contact with the reality that America First and Israel First cannot be the same policy when the war is for Israel and the bill is for America. That is where we are. A Gold Star Green Beret just walked away from the president he helped elect. He named Israel. He named the lobby. He said this war is not ours. And the movement that was supposed to be unbreakable is now breaking. In public, on the record, with the whole world watching. If this breakdown helped you see the full architecture of what is happening, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to understand the forces actually driving this moment, and I will see you in the next one. Stay sharp.